Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with Marguerite Rigoglioso later about the divine goddess cannabis and a bunch of weed stuff, which is pretty cool. I'm a little high right now, and I have a jar of weed here, and I'm what you could call an enthusiast. Heading down to California,
A chronic enthusiast?
or an addict, one of those somewhere on that. It's a spectrum, like gender. So that's it's a good chat. It's a fun one.
Yeah,
They're all
it's really
fun,
good.
but it's a real
Yeah.
good one for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. She's awesome. And she's kind of coming out of the cannabis closet in a way because the legalization has kind of made it sort of more acceptable. So she's sort of talking about how she's used it for her oracle work. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Bio guy.
So Marguerite is the founding director, PhD, is the founding director of Seven Sisters Mystery School and a scholar practitioner of the ancient Mediterranean mystery traditions. She's the author of The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece and the Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity. And she's pioneering these volumes emerging from her doctoral dissertation at the California Institute of Integral Studies that explore women's shamanic abilities in a revolutionary new light. So she teaches unique and leading edge courses on the sacred feminine and women's spiritual leadership at the California Institute of Integral Studies, Sophia University, formerly the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, and Dominican University of California. So she's also done a bunch of research on female deities and women's religious leadership in the ancient Mediterranean world and beyond. Bunch of books. Speaker at conferences and numerous public venues, of course. She combines this lifelong study of the religious history of the ancient Mediterranean world and beyond with her own spiritual growth work and intuitional skills, which have been cultivated through years of ceremonial practice as well as intensive study at the Foundation for Spiritual Development in San Rafael. She's been a professional freelance writer for 25 years as well, working for clients such as Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, Boston, and numerous nonprofits, businesses, and authors. There you go.
There you have it, guys. Enjoy the chat with Marguerite.
Marguerite, welcome back to Grimerica. How you doing?
Very well. So nice to be here again.
Yes, it's this is going to be a great chat. I don't know if you know about it, but I just sent your website to a friend of mine who's looking for a spiritual path. Like, I've always had that in the back of my head, like the section for men and stuff, and I thought, yeah, I'll send it to my friend here. And then I got an email the next day from Roxy about your you wanting to talk about this topic. So what divine timing.
Yeah, wonderful. Of course, that's how they work, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on at Seven Sisters Mystery School?
So much is going on lots of different levels. I've got, I know that the topic of our conversation today is about cannabis, and this represents a new awakening for me as a priestess of cannabis. And I know we'll go into that. And I'm also doing so much work on Mother Mary, who is connected into Santa Maria Cannabis. One of her names is that. We can talk about why is that, what I discovered. I'm talking about Mary Magdalene. I have a course coming up, the 7 Mysteries of Magdalene, which I think is just going to be really profound for people. I'm finishing my second book on Mother Mary. I know you talked to me about my first one. So lots of stuff.
That's great. So what made you, I don't know if it's a change or like evolve to wanting to talk about cannabis a little bit more openly? Like, was there something that happened there with that, or what's
yeah. Well, legalization helped because I was primarily working with cannabis as a priestess, as an oracle for years while it was not legal. And so I had to be kind of quiet about it and behind the scenes. I would only ever work with it ceremonially every 4 to 8 weeks for years, starting probably, I don't know, 2006, 7, 8, somewhere around there. And I would consult it and received a lot of the information that is the esoteric underpinning of things that I've taught and understandings that I've come to have and so forth. Very profound. The cannabis oracle work went along with my other regular oracle work where I was not in a state using medicine. And I kind of was able to learn how to open to that state, at will. But when cannabis became legal, in California, I think back in like 2018 or 19, something like that, that was like a little bit of a relaxation. Then I ended up moving to another state where it is legal. And then it's becoming legal in many states. So I'm feeling like I can relax around it and speak more openly about it. And that has led to, well, what is then the information coming through about cannabis itself, or as she prefers to be called, either Lady Cannabis or Santa Maria, come to find out. And a whole bunch of information came out recently, a month ago, on this, which I felt was, a lot of it was new to me. And I felt like it was so important that I was meant to share it, with the larger global community, because as cannabis is becoming more and more legal, it's being used with greater and greater ease. More people are getting exposed to it. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly about that. All right. So that's what I'm here to report on and talk about with you.
Wow. So what was the difference between and using that for an oracle and just normal oracle work? Can you talk a little bit about the difference?
Right. When I use cannabis, and I had to stop using it, by the way, for about 2 years during the Big C. I got the message in April and then November 2020. Stop now. Not safe to be in astral plane right now. Stop. And I thought I'd never go back to it. But now I got the message late last fall to start opening up to it again on a whole. And I realized I was doing so on a whole new rung of the spiral. Prior to that, and even now, I got trained in a psychic training school in San Rafael, California. And I learned at the time I was working with cannabis. So Lady Cannabis would teach me what a psychic oracle state felt like without using her. And I'd be able to recognize, ooh, I'm kind of going into that same zone as when I'm using medicine. It's like a more kind of feeling. And wow, I'm getting information that's beyond my pay grade, beyond my limited human knowing. So it was a figure eight for me between cannabis and the oracle state, and cannabis helped me train my own oracle state without medicine to be able to be open. Now, that said, it's still more intense and even more open when I work with cannabis. So that is why I was led to go back into it after this hiatus to see now how it feels now, what it's looking like, what kind of information I'm bringing forth, and why, under what conditions I'm going to use it and not use it. Okay. And also, one of my other sacred medicines is cacao, which has a bit of a different feeling. Okay. But we could talk about all the differences of these things. And in the past, I had also been exposed to psilocybin, which is like way high octane, and really, even at the time, certainly too high octane for me. It would bring me to nausea and things like that. So, each of these medicines has their own vibration. And through that, it suggests what kind of information, the level of information you can bring through. Ideally, we want to all become open vessels. That is ultimately our natural birthright. Again, without any technologies, and even without any plant medicine. That's where we're going. We're heading back. And so the cannabis usage becomes a mixed bag in that regard. And that's where the messages started coming down to me about cannabis and what to share with other people for their consideration.
Do you smoke it or eat it, or how do you find the best way to interact with it is?
Right. When I've ever used it, um, I mean, I got tricked into it because this was like years ago, back in the early 2000s, where um, I had some experiences with psilocybin mushrooms that were so strong that I just detached for 7 years from doing them again. And they're not really my plant ally. It's just too much for me. But I found myself in this group where there were brownies. And I'm like, well, I have been curious about the cannabis situation. I'm not sure if it's really right for me because I had a lot of negative thought forms attached to it that were protecting of me. It was ultimately good. But I ate this stuff, and then you know how it is. You're like, nothing's happening. So I ate a little more, and that was the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me because I had to figure out how to drive home, and it was really bizarre. And then I had this whole experience that I could talk about with my partner at the time. But it opened me up, and I encountered Persephone, who wanted me to come into the underworld. And when I said yes, I felt like I was going through a tunnel at the speed of light, and I had to get it to slow down. And since then, though, I have only used it in smoke, little pipes and things. I don't get fancy with vaping and whatnot. I tried one of the water pipes, that I was like, I don't know, this doesn't. I need to get it directly in. But for a while there, honestly, one puff and I'd be like, woo. Then it was like two or three or four, but I don't need very much to go to open up and become that oracle.
Do you have any other questions around that, Darren, at all? Or?
No, I kind of figured, that's kind of, you need to be eating it to sort of get to that next level. That's really the one. If you eat enough cannabis, you'd be fucked up. And that's where I think you need to be if you want to do that kind of stuff. You just smoke it, you just kind of hit this sort of base level,
I see. So in other words, yeah, you can take in much more into your body. And at the higher levels, you get into a higher frequency of connection to the astral plane, right?
Well, it becomes a lot more psychedelic when you ingest it. I know that. I mean, I don't know about all that other stuff. That's not really, I haven't considered it, but it definitely, when you ingest it, it's a different animal for sure, especially if you eat a lot.
Darren's got a ridiculous tolerance too. I mean, if I had Darren's dose, it would kill me.
Yeah, I'm sure I would be dead 3 times over by the sounds of it. Yeah.
Even when I used to use it way back when, I had to have especially if I was drinking. I mean, I didn't have enough reverence around it, but I had to have a 2 hoot limit, or else I would just get way too fucked up. It would just.
Yeah. And what I wanted to bring forth was the conversation about the difference between recreational use and sacred use, because I've always had an instinctive sense of this. For me, the rule was never use it recreationally, only use it respectfully in ceremony. So I've never done it except for creating an elaborate altar, going into a serious prayer space, having the music, the set and the setting, invoking the beings that I wanted to communicate with, and then going to town and recording everything in audio that I was receiving. Never started doing it whenever. And that was just my own personal rule. I had an instinctive sense that as long as I did that, if I treated it like that, it would give me the oracle information and not get me into, troubles. That said, though, I would go into the underworld. Okay. So I was getting introduced to underworld levels of information. And it was very interesting because it was right at the point where I started to use it a little more frequently that the message came, stop now. That did correspond with the big C that was going on. And I had a very bad trip with it, strangely. I used a strain from a friend. So who knows, these different
Do you know
strains.
do you know what it was?
I don't know. I'd have to find out. But I went into a serious psychic attack. I had not had that since mushrooms. And between the two things put together, it was like, you are starting to get a little too friendly with this plant, number one. And number two, this is a pretty serious time to be going on to the astral plane when all this stuff is happening around the big C thing that was going on. And as an oracle, there was so much information coming through, and the channels were getting scrambled. The entities did not want us to know and see clearly what was going on. So I was like, okay, I'm off it. I'm off it. You're wanting me to just be in my oracle. Plus now I'll work with Mama Cacao. Great. But then a month ago, when I got back into it again, all this information came forth about right use of it and what is happening with this greater global use and how we can purify and cleanse this plant to have better experiences and to not get addicted and to work out addictions or work out paranoia places or pain and things like that. If we want to go into that, we can.
Yeah, we will for sure. But I do have some questions before that.
Sure.
So do you think this was a message that she was trying to give to more people in general, like the world in general? Like this is a time to stop and pay attention maybe to different things? Like why, like it seems crazy that it would be stopped at that point,
For me, it was just, hey, conditions are not right for you to be on the astral plane right now in this way that this plant takes you. And the benefit is you're going to be exploring other things.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't need to be poking into that domain right now. You need to be safe down here on the ground, intuiting best as you can of what's going on, talking to other people and doing the work on a different level, which had to do with the heart. My book about Mother Mary came out, So I was still working the spiritual levels, but not as an oracle who was going into ultra dimensional reality and the underworld. Also in a way, that was the time when Mother Mary said, you can put the sword down. You don't necessarily have to be the voice of the underworld and the negative entities that are going on and blah, blah, blah. Other people are doing that. You don't really have to go there. So that was part of it for me to get me off that track. And so that I could work more with the energies of the heart and so forth.
What was going on down there? I know it's kind of a vague, stupid question, but in the underworld, like
in the underworld at that time.
Yeah.
Well, when I started accessing into it, it was like a psychic battlefield. I was like, what the hell? I was so attacked, and I was like, there's like, choom, choom, because they were, the whole thing of the sea that went on was a full-on attack on humanity. They really didn't want people, certain beings that were orchestrating that whole thing really didn't want people to see that. So they're putting out the oracles. And I remember talking to other oracle friends who were like, I can't get a clear read on what's going on. This was like for several months, the first few months. And we were like, what the hell? I'm like, our channels are being scrambled. That's what was happening. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense because all these groups of people were split too over the whole thing.
That's right.
Some people didn't see the same things as other people were seeing. And it was,
that's right.
Yeah, my friend and I were even talking about a magic practitioner who's got a very interesting course on going through these magical processes. And she also didn't see what was going on. And I'm like, how can somebody that's so
I know.
involved in this realm not see? But it's
I
just,
know.
yeah,
I know, because people got led into split timelines, literally, like they were in different realities. So how can you blame anyone? Like they're all of a sudden, they could be deeply spiritual, this and that, shamanic, blah, blah, blah. And yet they're in like, this is all okay, but da.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, some of us were like, what? This is all out war. This is the whole thing that they've been aiming for decades now. I can see what's happening. This needs to happen. This doesn't need to happen. We need to just, wow, wake up. But ultimately, what it came to was we can't be fighting across these timelines. We just have to keep still embracing people in the other timeline with love, because that foils all the plans of these beings.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. It always comes back to love.
It always comes back to love. So that's what we're on right now. We're getting the valve is easing up now. How long that will be, who knows?
Yeah,
But like
now it's the time to get back into the oracle and get back into.
That's right.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Another high priestess of mine, colleague, she got the same hiatus period, and we both got the same message at the same time, like it's safe to go back in.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when did you realize that she was a deity, or that she was actually even Santa Maria?
Well, okay. This session back in December 2022 that I did publicly on YouTube, which people can see, it's on my YouTube channel, Marguerite Rigoglioso. It's in my show called Co-Creating the New Earth with the Subtle Realms and the Fae. I was aware that one of her names had been Santa Maria, right? In all these names that you learn about as a kid. I mean, it's called all these weird things. So, all right, I knew Santa Maria was one of them. And, you know, I said to my priestess colleague, Amba Alianahi, I'll name her, yeah, so I am being called to explore this connection between Santa Maria and cannabis. And it was just an intuitive thing. But of course, I got curious because I had written this book on Mother Mary, and I was working with her so extensively, academically and spiritually, that it was like, well, let's open this door, you know? Oh, isn't that interesting how it connects two things that have been major in my life, Mother Mary and Lady Cannabis. So I go into this public oracle on this YouTube channel thing, and I'm like finally feeling relaxed that it's okay. The long arm of the Inquisition isn't going to come. It's legal in the state in which I'm operating, you know, and I'm getting the go ahead. So I, you know, imbibe, and it's like, holy cow. It was, you know, my oracle was so much more open than it had been even 2 years ago. And because of all the love work that I'd done with Mother Mary, I wasn't really going into the underworld. So I asked, all right, Cannabis, what is your connection with Santa Maria? Here's what I was told. Cannabis herself is a subtle being, aka deity. As a deity, she is feminine. As a feminine deity, she is a holographic representation and echo of any other female deity. So, including the whole goddess herself. So the people who originally started calling her Santa Maria, when they went in and they were like, oh, female deity, what female deity did they know? They knew Santa Maria. So they saw her as that from that prism, right? And so that's legitimate. Yes, she's Santa Maria. Yes, she's a fairy. Yes, she's a she. Yes, she's a great goddess. And it was like being in that oracle state in that show, it was like, whoa, I didn't understand the depths and how like, this is like the infinite regression, the two mirrors together, like, wow, this is infinite. And then, you know, somebody was like, what is the actual name of cannabis? And I tuned in and I said, It's the name of God. And what I was shown is that it was a name that is every letter and every vowel in the alphabet that is completely unpronounceable to a human in a third dimensional realm. That, I mean, even still, I could cry. That this name of this plant is the word of God or goddess. So then, when you start really looking at her that way, and you understand who she is and what she has to offer, you start thinking about different ways of being and interacting with this deity. You start looking at how people are working with her and the positive and the not so positive for them about that. And then a whole series of teachings came in about that.
Ancient? Back to Soma?
Yes. What came through is, because I had been looking at that book, Cannabis and the Soma Solution by Chris Bennett or something like that. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. So here's the deal of what I was receiving in that, because I looked at it right in that ceremony, is Cannabis Soma. And what she said is, I am connected holographically to all plants that have taken people into the awakening, into the other realms. So yes, you could consider me Soma or not, both and. And I was like, wow, okay. So that guy was right, and then other people who were like, well, Soma is its own thing. We're right too, but both and, because we're in a hologram, and that's one of the things you can see if you're working with cannabis or you're just opening into your intuitive oracle space, which is, what she's basically here to teach us to do, not to like be imbibing 24/7.
Hologram of Mother Ayahuasca too, then, I guess, right?
That's
all
right.
Plants, right?
A hologram. She's like, I am sister to all of these plants or substances.
Yeah. Including mushrooms too, then?
Including, well, yeah. Because they get you onto the same plane. They get you into the same illuminations. So yeah, they're all doorways in. And like you're saying, Darren, eating a ton of it, okay, you can access the psychedelic visual aspect of her that you might not see on lower doses or in smoking, which psilocybin readily gets you into, right? It's just quicker, easier, right, with that. So this is, it was just so profound what was coming to me after this abstinence period and this working with the heart and this going through the hell that we all collectively went through and the confusion of it all. And then going back and being like, first order of business was for me to connect with her spirit. And then that's where all the information came through about how it is important to connect with her spirit and a whole series of teachings around that. So
do you know what those teachings are going to look like? I mean, addiction healing, other kinds of accessing spiritual realms.
Yeah. Well, here's what I wanted to share. Like, some of it is very simple. And one thing that Amba Aliana, he had taught me, and that's what I did before this ceremony, which I think helped it to get to this exalted place, was I put the cannabis I was going to use in a brass singing bowl. You can do it in brass or crystal. Yeah. And you 3 times, you do a cleansing on it, bring it to silence, then another time, with the intention that you're cleansing this cannabis of any connections that are not connected to the highest vibration of this plant, ally, goddess, and that allow you to release any of the DNA strands that are not helpful and any of the energies or entities that got connected with this particular plant through whoever genetically altered it, grew it, cultivated it, sold it, or whatever, handled it. So Amba had taught me that. So I did that. She's like, you have to purify the plant to get back to its original essence if you really want to be getting the most beneficial, highest vibration from it and be in right relationship from it. And that has to happen onto our cannabis because it has been so altered.
That's kind of what I was going to ask you. Darren probably knows more about this, but modern versus the cannabis from 20 years ago. You know,
It's better now.
it's better now.
You think it's
Is it-
better?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say because I grew up in a little town. You know, who knows what we were getting at the end of the road and
That's right.
getting it from sketchy sources. But,
That's right.
you know, it's cheap as shit now. And, you know, it's ubiquitous everywhere. I'm not buying it from the government or from any of these dispensaries or anything like that. But they really seem to have driven down the market.
Is there a reason why you don't buy it from them besides that?
It's usually super dry. It's
Oh.
pretty expensive, and you can only buy an ounce at a time. I like to buy like a half pound at a time, or at least a quarter pound. So, you know, I'm just not thinking about it for a while.
Yeah. It's certainly stronger now than it was, 20 and 30 years ago and so forth. What I was shown is that what we actually want to do is get back to the original strains, which were potent, but in a different way. And they didn't have a lot of the stuff attached, connected, and hooked into it that can create negative experiences for people, including addictions and overuse and so forth, and anesthetization. The plant is actually supposed to awaken you and help you heal, whereas it's come to be used as a sedative, as a way of coping, as a way of tuning out, and as a way of sort of being connected to the divine realms while not really. What she showed me is she said that if you use it and you haven't purified it and connected with the original DNA strand, which is still in any plant, there's still enough of it in there. And this is a deeply shamanic thing to do. Without that, what happens is when you go into your altered state, you go into a bubble. You're not fully opening and connecting with the full panoply of the divine realm. So you're in a bubble, and it's limited what you can really experience and how you can really be assisted. And then, the addiction level can come into it and all that sort of thing. So I was like, wow. I mean, I had not received that before a month ago in that ceremony. So I'm like, she's like, yeah, the critical nature of being able to clear your cannabis. And she's like, it's so easy, she's so amenable to just an intention. That's how subtle she is. So she's recommending highly that, but then she's also recommending the return of the sacred horticulturalists. So the people who can work with the DNA of this plant, work it back to its original. That in and of itself is going to be a shamanic activity for these people, to work it back to its original template, just like we're all trying to work ourselves back to our original divine template, right? The plants really are no different because they've all come under the control, the spell, the co-opting, the hijacking, and the hybridization, just like humans, And so she's just showing me that we want to have the return of the horticulturalists, the sacred horticulturalists, in the return of the sacred cannabis priestesses and priests. That because those individuals all put together are going to be the ones that are helping people work with cannabis in the most beneficial way to them, and also releasing the addictions and not getting into the paranoia spaces and so forth. Though this was a huge revelation to me to receive this information.
how do you stop the people from getting in the paranoia state or the anxiety state? I know it seems pretty rare probably, but I know it does affect some people in that way
Yeah.
where they get paranoid. Or I mean, I used to get very I used to think a bit too much. Like it would stop me. It wouldn't really put me to bed. I mean, this is going way back now, like 20 years, but it would make me think too much at night almost. Like I'd leave myself voicemails of all these ideas and I'd be writing all these notes down and stuff. Like
Right.
it was too, it almost was too active for me. But it and probably a little bit of paranoia too and stuff. But
Right. Well, that's because we don't have the priestesses and priests to teach us how to use it, right? So everybody's a little bit on their own. Then we overdo, we overuse, we take too much, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden we're like, blah, 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 all night long. And it's like, holy crap, this is, not that healthy for me. But of course, it can open you to the creative realms and so forth, right? So, but your question
yeah,
before
what
we,
was my question? It was
uh,
so I guess is that how you teach people or how you stop it from
right.
affecting people negatively is through control of the use and using it in a sacred way and not through
Yeah.
over recreation.
Yeah. There were a few things that I received about that. One is, if you are already in an addictive paradigm with the plant, um, you can start again tuning and clearing your cannabis before using it. Before you imbibe it, connect in with the sacred nature of the plant and ask her to help you really learn how to work with her in a more beneficial way and to help heal you from any addictions, overuse tendencies, paranoias, and so forth. So you clear her first, and then you work with her consciously for her to assist you in the release, because the addiction has entities connected to it that have hooked into you like Velcro. That's with any addiction, alcohol, sex, everything that's good has been turned into an addictive substance or process because of these beings that are working on the earth plane. So we have to get hip to that, conscious, and like, oh, I see what's happening. I need to work with the plant and work with a knowledgeable practitioner, sitter, or whatever to help me unattach. And then the commitment can come in to, if you wish, only use cannabis ceremonially, not just when you're bored or you want to amp up your life a little, or you want a little creative juice, or you're with other people, or you're in a tremendous amount of emotional pain, you need something, she's like, get ceremonial with it, with me. And I'll teach you how to heal all those things that you're looking for, but it'll be in a more connected way and not in a bubble of saran wrap that you're
So
not really, it's like with it, you're like trying to kiss a person and you've got saran wrap around yourself. Whereas like that's the addictive use of most people with cannabis. You want to be removing that saran wrap so that you're really having that connectivity with the divine. That's what I received. People can do what they will, because I know a lot of people have their own relationships with cannabis. This is just a suggestion. And if it resonates, try it out, wear it for a while.
so a lot of this insight of healing, or even if you're addicted to alcohol or something else, I mean, if you tried to use this ceremonially, it might help you through revelation, through divine
Yes.
inspiration, that kind of thing. Like,
Yes. And also through seeing which entities are connected with you and working with your guides to release them. So like you get shamanically empowered around your own release of any entities that are connected with you. So that's the higher level that people could work with this on, to totally empower themselves for whatever they need. And then she was showing me from then on, again, user ceremonial, get in, get out. get in, get out, and let her actually train your vibration, your DNA, your light body to be fully activated with what she's stimulating in you.
When you're not using.
Exactly. On your own. These fairy allies are just teachers to get us back to our own light body of connectivity with the divine.
And like you mentioned in that video, that the addiction counselors are going to have to be shamans in a way, right?
They
It's going to be
will.
a very shamanistic experience.
That's right. You know, because those will help to be teachers to help people be able to see and cope with what they're experiencing then in their field. You know, they may not be ready to like do it on their own. But if you have a sitter or a priest or priestess with you, you can do this healing. You know, you can heal whatever's needed.
I like that. You mentioned at the beginning of the show about ideally we would all be sort of channels for divine communication. I mean, is there a minimum amount of protection or training required for that to happen for each person? Is that something that should be done very with a lot of discernment or care, I guess?
Well, that's a really good question. I would say start by just tuning into your intuition. That's where you are as an oracle right now. What are those gut impulses and realizations? Pay more attention to that. Take the jewels of inspiration, act on them, because as you do that, you open your intuition more and more and more in a safe way.
Yeah.
Then, if you want to take it to higher levels, you can go to psychic trainings. You can, like I offer a level 1 Priestess of the Dove online course where I give you the basic tool for how to clear, cleanse your auric field and get into your, what I call your goddess or God self state. That is the place from which you can receive information. I don't teach full body medium channeling at all. It's me, myself, and I on my higher level, who is already a hologram connected to the divine. I don't need to be channeling. So, and then as you open, like, you know, as you open with these tools and so forth, yeah, you might find, oh, the equal and opposite reaction. What is this being? What is this experience? And so you might want, you know, a lot of these psychic trainings will help you with just some basic tooling, some basic protection, some basic cleansing, like cleansing yourself psychically is like taking a bath or a shower, right? We have to do it energetically as well as physically. And just becoming more aware of the dance of these other energies that can be going on, not always fun and games, right? And then at more and more and more intense levels, you know, as you do the stronger medicines, the ayahuasca, this and that and the other thing, you'll find other levels of people that you need to work with, information that you're getting either directly or through teachers or what have you. So it's just, it can be an incremental process for people.
I think that's important to go through those levels of
Yes.
maybe you could call it initiation or whatever, but instead of just diving right in head first, you know?
That's right. You know, and in a way, I kind of did that when I did the mushrooms way back, and it was like way the hell too much for me.
How much did you do?
Not that much. I mean, God almighty. I'm such a lightweight, right? Honestly, it really wasn't that much, but wow, I'm in the underworld, you know. So
some people, it doesn't take much. It doesn't.
That's right.
Especially, it seems to be. Mind you, that's not totally true because I do know a dude or two that it turns sideways. But I know a few women that if they eat too many mushrooms, it's like doesn't take a lot, and like
more than a
there
gram
too
or
many
two?
is like like a gram or two, and they're just like.
Oh yeah, I must have been under a gram. I don't even know, but yeah, because we're highly tuned, probably because of karmic past life recall. You know what I mean? And so, like, it didn't take much. Wow, one little puff, boo, I'm in the oracle space again. Hey, I remember this from Delphi.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Mm.
I miss. I mean, I'm coming up on 15 years sobriety, and I do somewhat regret. I don't really regret my past because I needed to go there to get where I am, but
Yeah.
I do regret not using it more in a sacred way, like mushrooms and weed. Like I wish I would have had more reverence for those experiences and used it a little bit instead of abusing it. I just abused everything back then. So
Yeah. See, this is why this message came through. It was like, Marguerite, go forth and preach the gospel of Santa Maria. I'm sorry if it sounds like that, but it's like, I'm trying to just be, give the information in a neutral way because, see, this is what happens. And so many of our youth, and especially young men, and then you get hooked with those entities, and it's a biatch.
oh yeah, there's not a good once you get to that level, there's not a good survival rate, really. I
It's
mean,
not, it's not, and so she is showing other ways that these things can be detached, but addiction counselors, going to have to be shamans. They have to be psychologists, shamans, trauma specialists, and knowledgeable about energy flows and streams and physicality in the body, chemists, because they need to know that the addictions come in at the physical chemical level, the emotional level, and the psychic level. So you need to be working with the person on all three of those levels and probably more to truly get the unhook. Right now, we've got, the 12-step programs that are functioning on willpower and so forth, and trying to get you to connect with the divine. But it's like there's some other steps that need to be added in there, and that's going to be new earth healing. People who are bringing in those other steps and then bringing in the awareness of the plants. So we never get there anyway to begin with. We never get to addiction because we don't even need addiction because we're healed already. We're already connected with source, with love. We've moved on from that earth type thing. We're in the realm of being able to live creatively and joyfully, right? So these are steps that we're going along. And there is a lot of work to be done with addiction counseling on the shamanic level. So,
yeah, and right now the mainstream sort of academic part of addiction counseling is very much materialistic in a way, I think, and very much around harm reduction, not really the spirit I don't think it's really accepting of the spiritual solution.
No, of course
And I
not.
believe I think there's the spiritual solution is the most important part of it.
It is because you're not going to disconnect unless you deal with the entities that are involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Is there more meditate? Is there like after you've cleansed it and you're using it sacredly? Is there any suggested meditations? Like, is it good to do sort of like a transmutation type meditation, spiritual alchemy type stuff, or is there any
Yes.
kind of specific things you suggest in that way?
Yeah, any and all. You go into the cannabis, you clear it, you create the sacred space for it, you imbibe it, you intend beforehand, you pray to her and your guides, and to help you. You have intentions and questions that you're going in on and in with. You're asking her to please give you insight, tools, transmutation schemas, and all that sort of thing. And let her be your direct teacher.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's about the empowerment of all of us.
So you mentioned strains. What about like indicas versus sativas and stuff like that?
Right. So, those are all like all these experimentations and hybriding that's happened over the years, right? To enhance certain aspects of it and decrease certain aspects of it. And, it's just all part of the hybridization that's happened. So Yeah, the sativa, I think, is the one that's more likely to connect you with the opening into the realms. Um, and whatever you do, you want to talk to the spirit of the plant and her original strain that is that cosmic opener. And what I received in that ceremony was that originally all plants did this. They all opened our consciousness. I was like, wow, hello. And they're like, yeah, what do you think Eden was? I wasn't just walking around in fig leaves. I mean, I was like, wow, it was the Garden of Earthly Delights. And nobody was misusing, like it was just an enhancing kind of experience. Like, okay, now we're in the earth plane. We're already a divine ascended beings. And what are these plants offering? It's like, eating chocolate at the end of the night. Do you really need it? Not really, but it's, it just brings certain things to your life. It gives you an experience. So originally plants were like that. And so we're wanting to tune into that original strain of Santa Maria, Lady Cannabis, the Word of God, and just ask her to show us, to connect with her fairy essence that is opening our consciousness to the divine realms and transforming our lives to be living that.
Is part of your upcoming work going to be to maybe help people create circles or help sort of come up with some protocols or some things that maybe people could get together with friends and do this kind of thing in groups? Is that recommended?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. My work with cacao has been to have group ceremonies where I kind of guide journey people, and then I give them their own time for their own direct experiences. So, but there's more opportunity that there could be co-priestesses and things like that. And, so yeah, the same could be possible in the cannabis realm. And I do know, like, Stephen, do you know him? In Canada, Gray. They've had different types of group experiences. It's kind of like a little, Eleusinian mysteries type thing or whatever. I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding what he's doing, but it's like, what happens when we go in as a group and we've purified the plant? We have good leaders around us. We were in a protected space. We're really connecting with Santa Maria energy. What do we? Yeah, there's a lot of potential for that. I will see what I'm meant to do. Right now, because it's still illegal in so many places, it's still iffy legally. And I don't want to get into any of that until it's all safe to be done without the Inquisition coming in. Been there, done that, And so we'll see. We'll see as it comes around, because I think there's going to be a stronger need for more sacred cannabis priestesses and priests to help readjust to all of this overuse and misuse and that's going to be happening as everyone gets their hands on it.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's a lot of people have been using it and experimenting with it. Even when it becomes legal, it'll just there will be more people doing it, just like alcohol. I mean, now look at how yeah, we don't want the same thing to happen that happened with alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. Because with alcohol, what happened is they turned the original mead formulas, which were open state of consciousness things, total huge sacramental things going back to antiquity, and they kept distilling it in this weird, bizarre way into the alcohol that we have. That could happen, and cannabis is on the road to that. So that basically it's not really the opener at all that it once was, and it is like 90% addictive energy opener. That's what we don't want to happen with cannabis, and it could happen. That's why it's important for these sacred horticulturalists to come into the world and go, whoa. And as people start awakening and new earth consciousness, comes upon us all, there's going to be more there will be more sacred horticulturalists. There will be more people opening their awareness to how this plant can be used for the most beneficial ways and so forth.
That makes sense. I like it. And also just so that it doesn't get glorified like alcohol did. I mean, I really think over the last, many decades, it's been it's really been sort of a consumerism push and glorification of alcohol and getting drunk and all that. I mean,
Yeah. Because whenever anything gets connected with corporate,
yeah,
that's where those entities massively come in. Through the
interesting.
production process, through every aspect and step of it.
Yeah. Wow. Darren, do you have any other thoughts from
Well, they already came in from a what, Graham?
a user perspective?
A user, a cannabis user.
Yeah.
Um,
An aficionado?
No, well, I mean, I've never really come at it from. I don't profess or to come at it from like a spiritual standpoint. It's more of like probably some sort of weird ADHD medication or something like that. I really feel like I'm probably less productive when I'm not smoking, but I could just be an addict. I mean, either way,
Well,
my life is good and I have like no complaints, so I'm just gonna stay the course. But I definitely don't approach it with any sort of reverence to spirituality, other than the fact that I appreciate it as a plant in my life. I used to get crazy with the strains and have all different kinds. Now I'm just buying a half pound at a time, usually grown by somebody I know or their dad or something like that, and
yeah.
chipping away at that.
And now here's some other potential options for how to interact. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Should you choose.
Pile into some edibles. What about getting into some like? Have you considered dabbling into some more mushrooms and stuff like that as those become legal? Because it seems like that's going to happen fast.
Yeah, myself.
Yes. Yeah.
I think right now my intuition is just to work with my own oracle with the cacao, and now the cannabis is enough of a step back into higher vibrational medicines. Not really feeling called to the mushrooms, never was called to ayahuasca because I knew it was like way the hell too much for me. Or San Pedro or any of these others. So I got enough. I had enough over here, with this stuff. And I want to explore, what are the possibilities of this? Like, how open of an oracle can I become in this lifetime through this Santa Maria teacher? And I'm on a journey myself. Like 2 years ago, I was in a different oracle space. So when I was with cannabis again, it was like, oh my God, wow, I am like, woo. And I'm not even going into the underworld anymore, because I had to go and learn all about the negative creatures and whatnot back then. Not so fun.
You had to go back. You had to go down there to check it out.
Yeah, I had to go down there. I'm a priestess of Persephone.
So maybe we should have you back on in the fall when when is your next book going to come out?
Well,
maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
I'm finishing it now and then working to get it published. So I'm imagining 2024.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it's about things about Mother Mary that no one has ever known.
Wow. Really?
Unless they are going to geek into these hidden gospels about her.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, like massive major information. And beyond the virgin birth aspect of herself, who else was she? Okay. So yeah, that's coming, and I'm just having fun reading and writing right now.
Can you give us a teaser?
Was
she in the scene?
There's a good possibility, yes. And I don't even go into that too much, like with that name.
Yeah.
But I show all of what I learned about what she did according to these texts. And for example, that she had a sister who was also named Mary.
Wow.
Wait, so they're both named Mary?
Yeah.
Mary
Rose
and
your
Mary?
Yeah. So I'm
Are
talking
they
about
like twins?
nope. They were born different times.
But their
But
parents named them both Mary.
yeah,
What the fuck?
the younger daughter was first given a different name, and then she was given the name Mary. Priestess title.
Oh, interesting.
I should have
Yeah.
gave all my kids the same name. It'd be
You know,
easier.
if it's Jesus, why not? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a priestess title originally, Mariam. And it goes back to the ancient Egyptian Mary,
Right.
which is a divine love. Okay. There's a little teaser for you.
There you go. Yeah, thank you. That's a great teaser. I love it. That's gonna be a
Yeah.
very
So people
interesting
should
book.
come to my Magdalene course, the 7 Mysteries of Magdalene, because I'm going to go into some of that and what was the relationship with Magdalene to Mother Mary. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll put a link to that course in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
This
Well,
has been great. Yeah. Thanks for coming on and talking about this.
Yeah, thanks, Marguerite. Good luck.
so much, Graham and Darren. Yeah, for inviting me. Really appreciate you both.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great night.
Ciao, you too. Bye.
And that was a chat with Marguerite Rigoglioso.
Oh, you know what? I didn't get the pronunciation handy because there was a specific
It's not
Rigoglioso, maybe
what I said.
Rigoglioso. I can't
Rigoglioso,
remember
that
if it
does
was
sound like
Rigoglioso.
familiar.
Yeah,
That does sound familiar.
it's spelled with 2 G's. Rigoglioso. So, and it's 7sistermysteryschool.com is the website. Yeah, I like it. I love her work, and it's fascinating to me.
That is good stuff. I like it too.
Yeah, I wondered. So what I was thinking is, I wondered how much of her work lines up with that Mystical Life of Jesus book, because it talks a lot about his parents, and they were
Jeebus.
the scenes, and they were sort of like spiritual adepts in their own sort of religion on their own. This Essenes, very sort of magical healers and stuff. Pretty interesting.
Magical Jeebus. Big thanks to Marguerite for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening.